welcome everybody to our first episode of PodCaps for this fall semester. Today, we're going to be talking about first generation college students and the effects of first generation students on mental health. So, what is the effect of being a first generation student have on your mental health? And how do we kind of navigate through some of those challenges? So, I'm here with a couple of our different CAPS ambassadors. And we will be going over this topic and kind of giving some good advice with how to deal with this, and then also some resources. So the first question I want to open up to my team is, what does it mean to be a first generation student, and how do we define that in our own words?
To me, it means being the first in your family to ever go to college. So no one has ever been in your shoes and you're kind of just navigating it on your own.
For me, I feel like I apply it more to like my immediate family because I'm not entirely sure of like the status of my other extended family if they how they're going to college and stuff. But I know that the way I'm navigating through college is like based on my own experiences and not any guidance from my parents and stuff like that. So I'm like the first, besides my older sister.
I'll take it more of like, I guess like not like the correct term for it, but I think because it's first generation, it's like the generation would be like you and your siblings, which remains true for me because my older siblings have gone to college, so I'm like the third one in my family, but we're all technically the same generation.
And I think for me, I come from a unique perspective as well, because even if you go back a couple of generations into my family, I don't think anybody has ever been in a college setting. I think a lot of the time there are a lot of like obstacles that can lead to a lot of that generational boundary and limits. And so for me, I think being a first generation student is really coming from maybe a blue collar or a working class family and entering a very scary academic setting and trying to navigate that setting and trying to figure out how you want your life to be different from maybe the family that you've come from, and the work experiences that they've had, which really generate into life experiences. And I think that I really love that we have a varied definition of what it means to be first generation, because it is such a unique experience from person to person. And I think the challenges that also accompany first generation students look different depending on your personal circumstance. But I think it's really good to have those different perspectives when we're talking about being first generation, because again, that's going to look different depending on your background and where you come from. So I think that it's really awesome to have those perspectives. I'm excited to kind of talk about this with you guys more. So now I want to kind of transition into talking about some of the challenges that first generation students face. So when you think of being first generation and maybe you reflect back on your own personal experiences, what are some challenges or issues you face, do you think, that directly stem from being a first generation student?
So for me personally, I think of FAFSA. I had no idea what it was or like how to even fill it out. They didn't go too much into debt in my high school about it. So I just remember constantly getting called into the office saying like, your FAFSA's not going through, like something's wrong. And then I'm like, well, I don't know like what's wrong with it. And finally they had me on the phone with someone like from FAFSA like to help me fill it out, and she couldn't even figure out what was wrong with it. And then the bell rang and it was time for lunch and I was still stuck figuring out like what to do. So then all I felt in that moment was just like I just wanted to cry, because like here is a counselor, she doesn't know, even the lady from fast food doesn't know. Obviously I can't like go to my parents or an older sibling because I'm the oldest. So it's like I just felt like I was kind of out of resources at that point. And I think that's another thing for me. It's like I didn't know where to look for the resources or how to even start a college application at first. And being a shy person, mainly in high school, I had a hard time like reaching out. But I quickly learned that that was kind of the only way that I was going to figure out how to do things.
For me, most difficulty is like career based or like when I'm saying what major I want to go in. My parents kind of are like psychology. What do you do with that? Because they don't really have their careers in themselves. They just kind of have jobs. So that since I'm going towards a career that they're not sure it makes a lot of money and they're like more economic based. So like when I'm like, oh, I'm studying psychology, they're like, oh, wouldn't you rather be a lawyer or go into social work or do this and this and this? I'm just like, well, it's kind of where I've been drawn to, and I kind of know, I have a general idea where I'm going, but they don't understand that. They rather me just kind of find a way to get money instead of like challenging that. idea?
For me, one of the hardest parts has to be like the sense of loneliness. Um, Granted, I did have older siblings who went to college, and for the most part, they have helped me with stuff like FAFSA. But when I'm here in like my own college setting, like by myself, having to figure out like my own classes, how I'm gonna graduate, like through my uh, how to schedule my classes, like what classes I have to take, the prerequisites, like while I'm actually studying my classes, it's that's like probably the most difficult part. The resources on campus, especially since like I'm the first one to come to UTA specifically, that's probably the hardest part, especially because like most of my friends have gone elsewhere. So especially if I wasn't someone who was a little bit outgoing and wasn't able to make friends easily, then I can seriously see how this could be daunting going through college alone.
Yeah, and I feel like I related to so many of your experiences, especially, in the sense that like going to college, trying to figure out even how to apply to college, how to fill out documentation to get there. Like just getting here, I think, is already a lot comes with a lot more obstacles and a lot more stress for people who are first generation and don't have parents or siblings really guiding them through the process. And so I think that before you even get here, you're kind of at a disadvantage. And then you land here, you're trying to pick, a major, you're trying to really develop a career and see what that trajectory is going to look like. And I think a lot of the time, something that we don't really talk about, but that's kind of understood is that a lot of people that are first generation come from working class families. We come from blue collar families. As you said, maybe your parents don't have a career, they have a job. And that looks, I think that gap between parent and child, of like a parent having a job and a child trying to have a career, it can be really scary. Also, from the parents' point of view, of like, we don't know, if that makes a lot of money, we don't know how to help you with your career development. Just pick something that is secure. And I think that can be kind of hard to, cope with on both ends. Another thing that I want to bring up is, for those of you that have siblings, I know most of us talked about having siblings. For me, I think one of the most difficult things about being first generation, and one of the challenges that I faced the most, was kind of having a lot of feelings of like guilt or shame from having the opportunity to pursue college, to pursue higher education, especially as related to maybe my siblings not getting to come here, or maybe even my parents not being able to come. My parents talk about that a lot, of how they wanted to but weren't able to. So I think there's also a lot of guilt and shame that can come with being first generation in that aspect.
For me, since I have younger sisters, so I hope that they do have the opportunity now that I got to kind of pave the way. For me, the guilt kind of comes more from not being around as much. I know I still live at home, but I'm not like there when they're there after school. I'm like busy with extracurriculars and other things. So I'm not always there for them, and I kind of like miss moments in school, and then my mom kind of catches me up later. So that's where kind of my guilt stems from, just kind of being absent and being busy in my own things that I don't focus on theirs. And it might come off as like I don't care, but it's not that. I'm like busy in my own things and just like focusing on my stuff that I don't realize that I've kind of, left them aside, if that makes sense.
That's something I completely resonate with because I have a younger brother and he's only like 6 years younger than me. And we used to be very close, and now when I get home, I'm tired. I don't want to really talk to him. He tells me about his whole day. I'm just like, I want to go to sleep. I have a homework to do. I can't really spend that time with him, even if I do stay at home. And then he has questions about UTA, like, oh, what's it like here? I want to know more about it. Do you know more about this major? He wants to be ready for college, even at his young age. And he kind of sees me like, oh, they know what they're doing. I'm gonna ask this person everything about college ever because they're the professional now. And it's like I can't be that resource for him because I'm busy myself and I'm still navigating through everything. And I kind of feel guilty that I'm not like what you said, that I'm not there for him like that. But where with the opportunities I have, I feel like it's more I'm the one who pursued it. I don't feel like I think more with my father. He wasn't able to pursue education, but he didn't seem to like have a negative effect about it. He seems like he feels like he's better off. So I think just being absent is the main guilt I feel coming here or pursuing this.
I'm gonna go in a different direction and say that like a guilt for me or like a part of shame for me coming to college would be like pressures to live up to my older siblings. So they're not that much older than me, about 6 years. So when they ended college, I was going into college, and it was just been hard for me to like live up to like my sister. She was like valedictorian. She was this like all-star athlete, like all state. And she went to TCU for a full ride, which is pretty prestigious. And then my older brother going into UNT, into like a master's program and all this. And so that's like hard for me to try to like live up to their like footsteps. Um, and so that sort of leads also into like imposter syndrome that I know is pretty big between me and like my social group and some of my friends. So that's probably the most where I'd feel like guilt and shame.
No, and thank you for all sharing your experiences. I think that that guilt and shame can come in so many different forms, and I think even just in our small group, we can see that. But I think that nevertheless, when you are a first generation, that's almost always going to be present, and so, that's something that is really a big barrier and a big challenge, something you're navigating on top of all of the things that you have to do. We've all said we have very busy schedules, so I think that can just be another pressure that can really negatively affect people who are first generation. I think another common theme that I've heard sprinkled throughout a few of our stories is really difficulties with our family understanding what it means to be a college student, understanding maybe your responsibilities, what you have going on, understanding how busy you are. And I think that within your first couple of years of college, it can be really hard for your parents to understand what the difference is, even maybe between high school and college classes. I think that's especially true for those of us that don't have parents that went to college and maybe we're the first sibling to go. Our parents have no idea what that academic environment looks like and what the difference is between maybe a high school academic environment and a college academic environment. And we all know the big difference, right? We know that there's a huge gap. You're much more busy as a college student. Things are a lot more tough when you get up into those harder college classes. And so I think that that lack of understanding can also really leave you feeling a lot of different things, whether it be, again, like we were talking about earlier, feeling alone, feeling like you don't have resources, maybe feeling, like you have to be hyper independent and you can't ask for help. I think that that's also been kind of a common theme. So I do want to hear y'all's, experiences and feelings with maybe feeling disconnected from your family, maybe feeling like a lack of understanding, any of those things really.
I think my parents understood that college is hard, but I don't think they like really got like the very specifics of it. So, especially because I went to community at first, so it was more like laid back and I wasn't in anything. It was just classes and then go home. So they kind of saw it as still like kind of high school, but also like, still higher courses, but you're still just going to class, coming home. So I think when I got to UTA and I really like, I started like explaining more, I do find it difficult for them to kind of understand everything, especially because I have to translate everything in Spanish. So then it's sometimes hard to like say certain things to make them understand. So I just feel like whenever I explain, like they kind of give me almost like a gasp, like their eyes kind of light up, like they had no idea that this is how it was, like this is how much I have to do, this is all I'm involved in. And I definitely feel that hyper independence, especially money wise, because my parents have always been clear and I've always known that they can't afford a college education. So I rely on just like financial aid and scholarships. So if I'm ever like short on money for books, I try to just kind of find a way, like maybe pick up extra shifts. Like I'm the type of person that'll never ask them for money, and I just have a hard time like asking them for that because I just know they can't and I feel bad, even saying like, hey, I'm short for this book. I'd rather just go out and find it myself. And same thing with like any application or like coursework. I'd rather just figure it out myself and then tell them about it than them see me struggle.
I'm also kind of the same way with community college, but it was more as a dual credit student because this is still, I'm a first year student, so they're still kind of adjusting that I'm in a bigger scale university. Because even though I was in a college setting and taking college courses, it was a lot easier than coming here. So coming here was like a reality check for me. Like then I saw my grades starting to slip and things are getting harder, and then I see my time getting shortened. I feel like I go to school, go home, do my work, and go to sleep, and that feels like my entire day. And then say my dad wants me to do more chores, but I'm like, I'm busy. He's like, well, I work, so we're kind of the same thing. But I'm like, well, I'm kind of also mentally drained. Even though you're physically drained, I'm mentally drained from going to school, and he doesn't seem to understand that because it just seems like it's just school. You're not really doing much. You're just like listening to people and taking notes. Um, so he has that disconnect of like how hard it is to obtain like a higher education. It's kind of hard to kind of explain that to him. And it's just like I kind of forgot the the topic. It's okay.
No, and I completely agree though. I think that when you come into college, especially that first year, is when things really start to hit you as a first generation student because you're really expected to do it on your own, right? Of course we have resources and you know those are there, but it can be hard to even find those. It can be hard to really get connected. And again, like we talked about, that hyper independence is really difficult. I know a lot of us that are first generation feel that we have in the past, had to figure things out on our own. Just coming from maybe a working class family or a family where parents and siblings have to work quite a lot, and we're left to figure things out. So I think that as we transition into a college environment where our parents really don't have the information or the expertise to help us, that hyper independence can kind of just fester to where it really becomes isolating and really lonely to try to figure things out on your own. And so I think that I definitely resonate with that. And I think that that's something I still struggle with as a fourth year into my senior year, is really trying to figure out things on my own, and feeling maybe like I'm bugging people, asking for help. And I just think that that's something that really comes with the title of being first generation. I think it's something that we can all really kind of relate to in that aspect. I think another thing that's especially prevalent for me is feeling this intense need to perform and to do it well, to be perfect, like dare I say perfect. I think that is something that has really maybe even been the biggest feeling for me. And I think it's more so driven by a fear of failure than it is a need to achieve. And so I think that there is, again, the sense of like performance anxiety as a first generation student when you get here, really feeling like you have to kind of live up to this own idea of perfect that you've set up in your head, so that you can maybe prove to your parents or prove to your family that this was the right decision. You made the right decision. Your major is the right decision. It feels like you're almost trying to justify all of these things by being good enough to where no one can question you. And I think this is, and maybe this is coming from my own personal experience, but I definitely want to hear if anyone else has felt kind of similar or struggled with similar things being first generation.
So I definitely get the fear of failure. My parents they always emphasize on like an education is like key to, like success. They have that idea, which is not completely wrong, but also, you can do great things without going to college. And I remember a year back kind of wanting to take like a gap, but again, that fear of failure, like me thinking, if I take a gap, then they're gonna think that I'm just never going to go back to school. What if I never do? So I just decided to just push through, to kind of just not fail, if that makes sense. So yeah, I definitely feel like they're watching me and just expecting graduation and then just expecting me to, go up from here, which kind of makes me scared to like fail classes or take a break. Because, what if I don't live up to the idea that they have in their head?
A big thing for me that's been happening recently would be like the fear of failure. So at points where it's like I don't want to fail, so I don't even like try. I don't even get it like the assignment started because I'm scared that I'm gonna do it wrong, or if I don't understand the assignment, then I'm just gonna procrastinate until it's almost too late for me to get help. I feel like it's the biggest thing going on. And then another thing going on would be, so I'm supposed to graduate this semester, like woo, yeah. But I've been struggling in some classes, and like my whole family expects me to graduate this semester because I've already sent out graduation tickets. Like I've already like signed up for everything because they make you sign up for it early. And now here I am struggling with one or two classes, and now it's like, am I actually gonna graduate? and then it's just that fear of failing and having to wait another semester, which there's nothing wrong with it. Like I'm already graduating early, so if I fail and go through the next semester, then I'm graduating on time, and like it's everyone on their own pace. But it's just like that expectation that I'm supposed to be graduating and don't not wanting to let them down or even like myself down.
Well, for me, I know that perfectionism is something I'm always trying to achieve, and I'm like in between, or now I am in between of like I should give myself a break. It doesn't really matter if I miss this assignment, or oh no, I missed this assignment, and now I gotta try extra hard to kind of make up for that instead of just letting it go. Because I know in high school I'd push myself a lot harder. Like I I barely had 2 Bs in my entire high school like career, and that's like insane. Because then I didn't have a social life. I'm trying not to do that here. I'm also trying to have a hard time finding that perfect line of achieving well and give myself a break and not pushing myself too far on either side. So it's kind of hard to do that. And then I was also always like the high achieving child of out of my siblings. So it's like if I do bad, then it's like, oh, so then the next person will be my brother. So then my brother's gonna do better. So like, oh, so you're not doing as well anymore. So now your brother's gonna be better than you. And it's like all hard to like so I need to keep my standards high, stress myself out, or just disappoint and crash down my already set bar that I have set for myself, you know. So that's kind of hard to navigate. And then trying to convince myself that it's okay if I drop a class or I fail a class or if I fail an assignment or a test. I have to like convince myself that it's okay, it's only one or it's only two, and that it would all turn out at the end. Because I'm already ahead a lot with the dual credit. So it's like if I had to retake classes, it would not push me back. It would even like push me more closer to my graduation date or expected or like a was it like you said, and it's just like it's that weird feeling of trying to find that perfect line.
No, and I think that I completely relate to you there too. I mean, my first semester was shocking to say the least. And I think that coming from that very, I feel like high school can be very competitive, especially when you're already high achieving. I think that, teachers can see that early on and they foster it. And, I feel like high school really does feel like a competition, especially towards the end, who's valedictorian, who's salutatorian. And then you get into college and you come into this environment where it really doesn't matter where you came from and no one really cares. It's blunt to say, but really you're just another student taking classes. And I think that that can be especially hard, and it's not really talked about a lot for first generation students, because if you make it to college as a first generation student, usually you had to work maybe a little bit harder. You had to kind of prove yourself early on. And I think that if you try to bring that into a college environment, it can be really difficult because you have this intense need to be perfect, to do everything perfect. And it also comes with the realization that you don't have maybe the resources to do something like that. You're going to have to learn how to, take time for yourself, how to not stress yourself out to the point where you're constantly achieving and setting standards that you can't achieve, unattainable standards. And I think that that is something that you kind of have to learn how to navigate through your experiences. And it doesn't stop when you graduate college. It's something really that you deal with kind of lifelong, something that you kind of have to unlearn. And I think a lot of it does stem from, again, kind of being first generation and kind of feeling this intense desire to make everybody proud of you. And I think that can be a really hard thing to deal with. I think another thing that I personally have dealt with that has made my undergraduate career very difficult for me is searching for validation from other adult figures, from professors, from mentors, from my bosses, and really looking at them to tell me you're doing good, you're good enough, you're worthy of being here. I think that I really excel off of that external validation from other adults. And I think a lot of that has to do with, being first generation. My parents really don't know enough about college to be able to really even ask me questions about how I'm doing and about what I'm doing. And even if I do share with them what I'm doing, they have no idea. I mean, I'm kind of involved in things that, I plan on going to a doctoral program. I do research, on a pretty high level. And so that makes it to where, I really can't talk to my parents about what those experiences look like or how I'm doing. And so I think that for me, a big thing has really been searching for validation from professors and mentors here who have this understanding of what higher education looks like and who know the different challenges that come with maybe even being first generation. And I think that's something that I really struggle with in the academic space and something I'm really trying to unlearn before going into graduate programs and pursuing higher education even further. And I don't know if this is a common experience, especially like within, professors and things like that.
I definitely relate to that because my parents don't know what it looks like. Like I can tell them, oh, I have a 80 in this class, and to them it's like that's great, but to me it's like no, that's like going into a C. So something that looks really great to them might not be enough for me. So I definitely relate to that, and I think I've never had like again like someone who went to college like a mentor, someone to kind of look up to. So I do look for that reassurance in them to kind of tell me like yeah, you're in the right path, yeah, you're doing the right things, because again my parents or no one that I know except for those that are in college like us, no one has gone through that from my family, so they don't really know exactly what that looks like.
I do see the want searching for validation from older adults, because like in high school you're always kind of you're holding hands with your high school professors and always being told, oh, you're doing good, you're doing great, your counselors are telling you you're great, and then here you're just a student in a classroom that a teacher's talking to, because it's like a large scale classrooms, and like it's hard for professors to get personal unless you're going out of your way to like talk to them and stuff. So it's not like you're not going to hear that from your professor directly. So it's kind of weird to navigate that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's even this other component that maybe isn't, related to full-on mentorships, but that's more so related to being first generation and not knowing how to interact with professors or potential mentors, people that are already in such a high up place in academia, not knowing even how to talk to them or approach them because it's intimidating. I think that, being first generation, again, it also comes with that hyper independence. And so when it comes to having opportunities to be mentored, having opportunities to connect with professors one on one, it can be terrifying because that comes off maybe as you not being competent if you're showing up to office hours or you not, showing them that you can excel. And so I think that's something that I've also struggled with kind of throughout my time as an undergrad. I really want to thank you guys, though, for sharing all of your experiences and for being vulnerable here. I know there will be others that really relate to this and that resonate with this. But one thing that I kind of want to talk about before we wrap up is maybe what resources have been the most helpful for you all as first generation students, really navigating all of these different challenges that we've talked about today.
I think for me, a big person is my advisor. Shout out to Betsy in the psych department because she's really great. And I definitely make appointments with her more than I need to. Like I probably see her 3, 4 times a semester, and like email her too, because I think she kind of gives me the reassurance that I'm kind of on the right path. Um, and also another thing is even CAPS, our own department. I also use it. I use our therapy resources, and I think it has been really helpful, especially because it costs a lot of money to do it outside of school. So I think it's really great that we have this on campus, accessible for students, and also free. So I think my advisor and CAPS have just been really great to me.
I think for me, the best resource has definitely been being a part of the CAPS Ambassador program. It's just letting me been like so close to all the resources in general, getting more information for myself, and then just talking about it with other students has like helped me like better myself.
Like previously said, I actually think the CAPS program, or yeah, because I use the services here, and I kind of forgot that I did, even though I had a session yesterday, and it's like the first time I'm getting into that, and it's like I think it's gonna be very helpful in the long run, starting to go regularly and talk about things that are need to be talked about. I think it's gonna be a very help me out as I continue my educational career.
Yeah, and I think for me, I kind of resonate with almost all of the things you guys have said. So I think that the ambassador team has been amazing for me. It's really opened me up, got me out of my shell, and it's connected me with communities of other first generation students. And I think that is something that I really, really needed that I didn't have in high school to really deal with this. And so I think communities of other first generation students and even mentors who have made it through academia onto the other side and that have that desire to mentor other first generation students has been really important for me. And even CAPS itself. So I definitely utilized CAPS and have utilized CAPS throughout the years, and it has been amazing, like Danny said, to also have something that's accessible, that's affordable as a first generation student, because we all know finances can be rough being first generation. And so to anybody that's listening and maybe has resonated with any of the challenges that we've talked about or that we've all personally faced, if that resonated with you, I think myself and my entire ambassador team would urge you to reach out and schedule an appointment with CAPS if you feel like there's anything you ever need to kind of talk through. And remember that you do have a couple of free sessions to go through if that's something that sounds good for you. So thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. And we hope to be able to put out another episode soon. Thanks so much.